I feel like I have my own private tutoring session here on this. But I just want to kind of wrap it up. For the people watching, there's going to be varying degrees of knowledge about this topic. What do you really want people to know about the Maya? And what do you want them to, I guess, unknow about the Maya, right? Some of the big misconceptions that there might be. I'll let you kind of take it in for a landing there.
So the first and absolutely most important thing to understand is that there are still Maya people today. It drives me nuts when people say, the Maya are all extinct, they all disappeared, or what happened to the Maya, where did the Maya go? I mean, I like all questions. I will answer any questions. But that particular one always makes me a little sad because the implication there is that the people who are living here today are not Maya people. And that's just not true. There are lots of Maya people today. There are more than 1 million people who speak Mayatan, which is the Yucatec version of Maya, of the Mayan language that's spoken here in Yucatan. More than 1 million people, just one language. So, there's Quiche speakers, Cachique, lots of different people who speak different forms of Mayan languages in Guatemala, in Honduras, in El Salvador, Belize, and Mexico today. And they are still here. They still practice ancient customs in some cases. They still possess a lot of really beautiful knowledge, and they still speak their language every day. And so it makes me really sad when I hear people say that the Maya people are all extinct, or the people who built the pyramids are not the same people who live here today, because it really does a disservice to people who I care about and am friends with. And Mayan last names are still very common in this area. And again, although the belief system has changed, there are still Maya people who believe very strongly in the values that the ancient Maya had regarding nature and regarding the world around them and spirituality. So that's my big thing. I really, really want people to be able to say, Maya people still exist. What happened to the Maya people? Nothing. They're still here, Obviously, lots of things have happened to them over the years. They've gone through many, many changes. Some of them better than others, and some of them, very hard. That said, Maya people are still very much a part of the world, and very beautiful spoken language that you can still learn today and hear. If you come down to the Maya Riviera and you go to Tulum, or you go to some of the lesser known places in the area like Bacalar or Felipe Carrillo Puerto, you're going to hear people speaking in Maya if you listen. So still a living culture. We also know a lot about the Maya. So there's always this idea of the Maya shrouded in mystery, and we don't understand them. And ancient people, all their ideas are lost. And what does this mean? And that sort of thing. The Maya people oftentimes tell us what they meant because they wrote about it on ancient inscriptions. We actually have the names of more Maya artists than we do even ancient Greek artists and ancient Roman artists. So we have their names preserved as signatures on their artwork. And so we know a lot about the Maya people. We know who their greatest artists were. We know who some of their rulers were. We know the stories of their rulers, who their rulers liked, who their rulers hated. I like to say I'm the premier expert on knowing which ancient Maya ruler was a jerk or not, because you can really see that sort of thing in their inscriptions. So although I don't expect someone to immediately come out of this and go delve into ancient Maya history, the fact is you can if you want to, and you can learn about these people, and they are real people who had real names. We know their identities. We know about, one of my favorites was Lady Six Sky, absolutely brilliant ruler who was a military tactician. She was invested in the arts. She was interested in astronomy, really cool person. And we know lots of things about her. So the Maya are not maybe as mysterious as we tend to view them today, and extinct. Those are the real things that I hope that you all take away from this talk.
What do you think is the biggest misconception? The human sacrifice stuff gets talked about a lot. I think there's a very negative spin, I think, through history about the type of civilization the civilized Europeans discovered here, right? And that it was barbaric and heads were rolling off pyramids. We know the Aztec were particularly brutal, right? But the Maya get a bad rap for this when they shouldn't. Is that correct?
So definitely a complicated issue. First thing I want to say is that I've heard people say all kinds of absurd numbers, hundreds of people a day being sacrificed, and the math just does not play out for that. I mean, I think I did the math one time, and it would be like the entire population, if they were sacrificing hundreds of people a day, the entire population of the city would be gone in 4 or 5 years or something like that, you know? The math doesn't work out to hundreds of people a day. The Spaniards wanted the ancient people to look worse than they really were so that they could justify all the horrible things that they did to them.
Right.
That said, it was a real issue. If one single person was sacrificed, that's bad, right? So I don't want to say that it was not an issue. It was not something that was terrible, but it needs to be contextualized better than it is. So again, clearly not hundreds of people being sacrificed a day. That number does not make any sense whatsoever. There's actually a lot of books, Aztec books, codices that survived from the Aztec era that show blood running down the pyramid steps, and it's very gory and hearts being ripped out of the bodies and that sort of thing. And a scholar actually recently found that the paint that was used to show that blood was a different paint than the paint that was used to paint everything else in the codex. And the paint that was used to show the blood came from Spain, which means a Spaniard actually painted all that blood in after the fact. And when you know that and you think about how ancient Maya folks, ancient Mexica folks portrayed blood, you can tell that that blood is added after the fact, because that's not even how that ancient people drew blood in this area. They tended to draw it in scrolls and volutes and things like that. So a lot of our ideas are certainly inflated, right? Every time we find a skeleton today, there was recently a find of an altar at Tikal that was described as looking like an altar from Teotihuacan, and they found burials inside it, and they were children's burials. And suddenly these were children who were sacrificed. And where was the evidence of that? There was none. It was just a claim, you know? Infant mortality was incredible back then. It was very, very high. And people frequently buried their ancestors and their loved ones on the same property. Even today, in some areas of the Maya world, your loved ones, when they pass away, they are buried on the property with you. So the idea that a young child would die of natural causes and be interred in an altar makes perfect sense with Mesoamerican culture. We didn't find any evidence of violence on those bones, so there's no reason to assume that it was child sacrifice. But yet the news ran with that idea that there was child sacrifice involved. So that's another example of we're projecting what we think we know onto these people, and in fact, you know, it probably was not child sacrifice. It was probably, unfortunately, a child who died in their young years, and so they were interred that way. That said, I have seen things that suggested human sacrifice, and I have seen things that suggested infant sacrifice. There's a cave called Actun Tunichi Muknal, and in the deepest part of that cave, there are bones of an infant. And, you know, unfortunately, I doubt that child had a good end of their life, to put it bluntly. So, you know, we don't want to go too far, and we don't want to say that everything was perfect in ancient times, right? We don't want to say that there were no, you know, everybody was happy and that sacrifice did not happen. But we really need to be careful about how we talk about it. And the final thing that I want to say about it is there is actually a play called the Rabin Alachi, which was written probably in pre-Hispanic times and survived into the colonial era. And that play shows someone on the receiving end of what we would call human sacrifice today. And the way that it plays out is so similar to the way that someone would be executed for treason today, or especially in medieval times, where he revolts against his former ruler and he raises an army against his ruler, and then he's captured and he's taken to his ruler and he's made to bow before the ruler, and the ruler says, you know, we have to kill you. Or you can say you're sorry and you can say that you're going to be my vassal. Which of those do you want? And the young man who has the typical pride of a young man, he says, you know, you can kill me then. I guess you're going to have to kill me. And, you know, he goes through what is essentially a trial. And at the end of the trial, he's put to death. And that's what human sacrifice really tended to look like. It tended to look like the exact same thing that was happening with the Spaniards trying to convert people to Catholicism. You can either convert to Catholicism or you're a heretic, and unfortunately, if you're a heretic, we're going to have to kill you. And, you know, many people chose to convert to Catholicism with that, but some people did not. And so would we consider them the victims of human sacrifice? You know, that's where it gets really weird with this stuff. You know, Mel Gibson has given us this terrible idea of what human sacrifice was like in the Maya world. There's that scene where, you know, the people are literally marched from their city, marched into the bigger city, marched right up the pyramid. That's all that happens to them. They don't they're not put through a trial. They're not given the chance to become enslaved. They're not given any chances whatsoever. They're just marched right up that pyramid and have their hearts taken out. And that is not at all what human sacrifice was actually like. Again, if even one
Right.
person was killed, that
Yeah.
sucks, right? Not a cool thing. But it's really important to contextualize it with the same kinds of things that rulers were doing in the Renaissance, with the same kind of things rulers were doing in the medieval era in Europe.
But I want to thank you so much. We talked for a while, so I really appreciate this conversation. Like I said, I'm a fan of yours. I love your videos. I watch them whenever you post them, and I learn a lot. There's so many details that you can, know off the top of your head that never in my lifetime I'll be able to retain. But to have you as a resource and to have your videos as a resource is a huge help for me. And next time I am down there, I have to pick a new set of sites to visit. uh, I will certainly, hopefully we can meet and we can maybe go adventure together. So I really appreciate this. I hope enough people see it and get some education. But it means a lot to me, so thank you.
Cool. And yeah, I had a great time, and I really appreciate your time as well. And also really enjoy the videos that you do, and I've learned a ton about Florida through them. I actually lived in Florida a little bit, and it's
Oh,
sort of one of
right.
those things where you're showing me things that I probably should have known or wish I would have known, but did not. So it's really cool to get the chance to dive into that world also.
Yeah, I hear that a lot with people in Florida where they're like, I go to a mound city, basically one of the biggest Calusa mound cities in Southwest Florida, and people live down the street. They have no idea that it was there. People write on my comments like, I've lived here for 20 years and I didn't even know this existed. So I get that a lot. I think Florida is unfortunately typecast as a more modern state with no history and culture. But I've been
Yeah.
so fascinated since living here with the Tequesta, the Clusa, everything that was going on here. I think is so cool. So um, it's fun to have that because for me, it's hard to be like every time I want some ancient history to have to get on an airplane and go to Mexico, right? So to have something here in my backyard while to keep me busy until I go back to Mexico is a lot of fun. So I'm happy you enjoy them as well.